You gotta be chitting me. It's potato time already? Okay, so what does chitting mean anyways? Chitting your potatoes literally just means getting them a head start before you plant them into the ground. Here where I live, planting usually happens somewhere in mid-February between or around Valentine's Day and President's Day. As we get like a last minute cold front, cold spell, something will happen. If the weather looks nice, go for it. For me, chitting potatoes literally just means taking it out of the bag. I buy my seed potatoes from a local nursery. This year I did 2 different kinds. So it really just means taking it out of the bag, putting it in a flat spot so that they're not touching each other, and then putting them out where they'll get sunlight and they'll sprout. Now, some people, when they chit their potatoes, every time I say it, I want to laugh. I'm like a 12-year-old. But when you're chitting your potatoes, sometimes people will pop off the extra sprouts and only leave the best one so that it'll grow just one big plant. What I do, what I've done the last several years, is just let it sprout however it wants to sprout when it's sitting out. There'll be several sprouts on each potato, and you can just plant the whole potato in the ground. What I'm going to do is I will cut it into pieces, leaving 1 to 2 little sprouts on each piece. I'll probably dip it in ash from I'll dip the cut side in the ash bucket from our ashes from our fireplace. Let that sit for a couple days. Dipping in the ashes just gives it, hey dude. Dipping it in the ashes just gives it that extra chance to kind of form like a seal or a scab of some sort. So it does, when you plant it in the ground, it prevents it from rotting and then not growing a potato plant. So that will be the next step. First, I'm going to let them sit out for a couple weeks. I'm going to actually just set them. It's really nice weather. We just got over a big winter storm. We had some ice and snow for a few days. It's all melted. It's a big mud pit out here. You can see I have boxes that blew everywhere from the storm because I was covering up to kill the weeds. This week I'm also taking the trailer to get a yard or 2 of soil because a lot of my beds have settled, and so the soil is very low, and in my area it's incredibly rocky, so underneath, when that settles, there's no place for the roots to go. So I need to top off all the beds plus fill these brand new beds because I want them to be 12 to 24 inches high, depending on what I am growing in that particular bed, because some things have larger root systems and some just don't. Oh my gosh, this is Duke, the garden cat. So that's in the plan later this week. So I need to get these potato plants going. I'm gonna put them on the top tier of my indoor growing area with my grow lights. It'll get direct sun from the window from the back door, and that should be plenty. What I also need to get done today is to pot on my starts, which is a Charles Dowding lingo. He says pot on instead of pot up. And that's just when you are growing your own seeds and your seedlings get bigger, their root systems need to be in a bigger growing area so that they don't get root balled. So I'm gonna do that. Start chitting my potatoes, get my tomatoes and peppers potted up, and get my indoor system all organized so that the next couple of weeks everything can grow well. One thing I do is I keep a tub where I have all my growing things in outside, and I have a lid so it stays dry. and out of the sun so things don't rot. But I always save all of my plant containers because this is what, yes, ladies, what do we need? I just fed and watered you. What do you need? Anyways, I save all of my containers, and so this is what I will plant my seedlings in now that they're bigger and need more growing room. So this is my growing area. It's just by my back door, and I have a metal shelf that I got at Home Depot, and we put it together. These are shop lights that I also got at Home Depot. I got the 2-foot ones so that it is the perfect length of my shelves. I have 2 per shelf. I could do 3, it would be a lot better because sometimes I find I am moving them. Like I have a lot of zip ties, I'm moving them back and forth. It is, let's see, I got the ones with the 4,000 Kelvin, 3,000 lumens. It's the best I could find. It worked really well last year. My tomatoes and peppers and everything were super healthy. As you can see here, I have all my tomato varieties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 10 different varieties this year. That's it. So that's what I'm doing. So what I'm about to do is take all of these little guys outside and pot them up into the bigger cells. That way they have room to grow. I also started my squash super duper early because I want to get them out. I want to have big plants that maybe even have flowers on them also before the threat of the squash vine borers come. So I'm starting really early. They're going to be huge plants before I get them out in the ground. But it's an experiment I am willing to try, and so that's what I'm going to do. As you can see, some of these, the yellowing, they are needing more nutrition, so it's a good time to pot these guys up. I'm going to add in some nutrients, plus they'll have the potting soil, which will have more nutrients, and then everybody will be happier. When I get done, because they'll be in bigger squares, it'll really start filling up these shelves. And then down here on the bottom, I also have lights down here, but I'm not using this. It's just kind of storage. But you can see, but I have my potatoes, and this is what I'm talking about. So the sprouts are already coming up. Now these are seed potatoes. These are not from the grocery store. I tried from the grocery store, and the organic ones, they did okay, but not as good as the seed potatoes. So I have the seed potatoes. They're already sprouting, so when I put them up in the sunlight, they'll be great in a couple of weeks. And I will just cut them into chunks so that each sprout will have a chance to grow a plant. So I'm gonna get those out on a tray and out of these bags and get all these guys potted up so they can really start growing. Okay, so I have all my pots out. I think I have enough. If not, I can dig out some more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out very gingerly and carefully each one of these tiny little seedlings, and then I'm going to put it in each one of the cups. This year I'm going to label them all because last year I didn't, and I didn't know what I was growing. They were all mixed up, and it doesn't really matter, but for me, I want to put certain tomatoes all together, and so I want to have like Paul Robeson's in a certain row, and all the Abe Lincoln's in a separate row, and all the cherries in a certain area, because they grow differently. Them last year would get really big and vine out, while some of them didn't really, and so I want to take better care and utilize the little space for gardening that I have. So to do that, I need to know which ones are going to grow the big, beefy slicer tomatoes. So, I have a little tool that helps. Let's get you down here. I have a little tool that helps, but I can't find it. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to pull out this whole cell. You can see the little roots. And I'm just gonna put it right in here. Oh, I need my soil closer. Soil. If you have leggy tomato plants, which I guess I should explain. So if you're growing from seeds and your plants have a very long stem, like super long for the size plant that is, it's usually because it's leggy. And leggy just means that it wasn't close enough to the light, so it is trying to reach up and grow as close to that light as it can. Now I know that some people, especially in the gardening groups I follow, will say, like, oh, you know, you have leggy plants, you might want to toss those guys out and start over. And in some cases that can be true, right? But what I have found, like, some of my guys are kind of leggy, but they also have really great roots. They're really healthy and strong. And plus, you know, I've paid a lot of money for these seeds, and I put a lot of time and care into them. So I don't really like just weeding them out when I can easily separate them. And they're viable, good plants. There's no reason to just get rid of them. But what I was getting at with the leggy ones is that, especially with tomatoes, they like to be buried deep. So let me try to show you on this set. Okay, this is 2 very good, strong, long roots, kind of leggy. But if you look really closely, I don't know if you can see, you see how it kind of looks hairy, like all along the stem, it's fuzzy. If you can look, there we go. All of those little spines and little hairs, those will actually turn into roots. So tomatoes like to be buried very deep, and all of this will actually turn into roots. So when you're going to transplant, instead of just planting, you know, from here down like you normally would other plants, you want to plant it pretty high up, especially if you have leggy ones. Then all of these will also turn into roots, and you'll have some really strong, great transplants. Now, a lot of people have told me to thin these out, just throw away one. I don't see the point in wasting that when I have really good plants. So I'm just going to very carefully separate their root balls, and we're going to plant both of them in a container, and I will have great plants. So those were all the Kellogg's breakfast. Let's see. So I'm just going to top these guys off. So as you can see, those tall leggy plants are no longer leggy. I'll probably go ahead and add in some more soil, bring it up a little bit taller and higher. And then in a few weeks, I'll probably pot these up one more time into a bigger pot, because I like to transplant big tomatoes and make sure that it's, you know, steady temperatures for them. So I'll probably pot them up again, but when I go to transplant them, these will be really strong plants with a good root system, because I will have planted them so deep. So now we need to get the rest of these potted up and get into bigger spots. Okay, so what I've decided to do is not pot up my peppers. I didn't realize they're all still very small and don't have their true leaves yet. So instead I'm gonna fertilize them. I'm gonna really dilute this, like a lot, into water and fertilize them and give them another week or 2. Also, I'm gonna let these tomatoes go a little bit longer. So those are not getting moved up. These are not getting moved up. And I'm just gonna move up the squash plants. Okay guys, so here are my potatoes. They're already sprouting. I don't really need to chit them, but I'm going to anyways. They're gonna get planted in about a week, week and a half. Here are all of the up-potted squash and a couple tomatoes. And the peppers don't really have true leaves yet, so I decided to leave them. I'm gonna let those tomatoes get a little bit bigger. I'm actually gonna let my lettuce get a little bit bigger. But the other ones that are ready are all potted up to keep growing.